Women's basketball stands at a crossroads so dramatic, it could redefine the future of the sport. On one side, there's Caitlyn Clark, a college sensation whose dazzling on-court abilities and jaw-dropping viewership numbers have injected fresh life into the entire women's game. On the other side, we see WNBA stars like Angel Reese, demanding recognition, better pay, and even threatening a potential strike. This collision of star power, money, and personal ambition holds explosive consequences for a league that's been running on the NBA's bankroll for over 2 decades. Will these controversies unite the players in a moment of transformation, or tear the WNBA apart right when it's on the cusp of a breakthrough? The stakes couldn't be higher. Rumors of locker room jealousy, swirling debates about who deserves the spotlight, and calls for radical changes to compensation are hitting the news every day. Some say the entire league hinges on a single superstar. Others want the credit shared among every athlete who's been grinding to elevate women's basketball for years. Fans, meanwhile, are left wondering if their sudden excitement will be rewarded, or if the whole enterprise could collapse under internal bickering. And behind the scenes, investors, team owners, and NBA executives watch nervously, as they've sunk fortunes into a venture that can't seem to turn a profit. But that's not all. This story runs deeper than any single game or highlight reel. It's about loyalty, pride, finances, and the complex dynamics of fame. It's about what happens when the breakout hero of a sport unintentionally overshadows the very veterans who helped lay the foundation she now thrives upon. Most importantly, it's about whether the WNBA can survive its own growing pains. If you think women's basketball is about to step quietly into the next era, brace yourself, because this isn't just another sports tale, it's a high-stakes showdown that could alter the future of professional hoops forever. Stay tuned as we unpack the different layers in this unfolding saga. In the next few minutes, you'll see the skyrocketing rise of Caitlyn Clark, the candid responses from Angel Reese, the precarious finances haunting the league, and the looming possibility of a lockout that threatens to turn excitement into despair. Strap in. By the end, you'll either be rooting for the WNBA's bright new chapter or bracing for a downfall of epic proportions. Caitlyn Clark stormed into the national spotlight like a comet, captivating audiences far beyond traditional women's basketball circles. Her three-point bombs from near half-court became instant social media clips, shared not just by casual fans but by NBA superstars who marveled at her shooting range. Television executives quickly realized her games were pulling in astonishing ratings, up to 1.4 million viewers whenever she stepped on the court, versus the usual 394,000 for other matchups. In a space where visibility can make or break an entire league, Clark stood out as a golden ticket to broader popularity. But her influence wasn't confined to the college ranks. WNBA executives saw a potential lifeline in Clark's popularity. They had long struggled to capture big audiences, and suddenly here was a player who could draw national attention just by lacing up her shoes. Even advertisers, typically hesitant to invest heavily in women's sports, began eyeing the possibilities. If a single college athlete could quadruple viewership, imagine what would happen if she joined the WNBA. The narrative took off. Caitlyn Clark, the savior figure who might finally catapult women's basketball into the mainstream. But listen to this, listen to that kind of hype, however, comes with a price. Veteran players who've labored for years in a league that often flies under the radar began to sense the shadow she cast. Some privately argued that the media was ignoring their own stellar careers in favor of a newcomer, albeit a sensational one. Others felt that Clark's story was just one chapter in a book that has many unsung heroes. From legendary figures like Maya Moore to modern stars who continue to put up big numbers but don't get the same coverage. To fans on social media, it started to look like a battle of old guard versus new guard, and it wouldn't be the last time Clark's presence stirred the pot. Yet, none of this stopped her from transforming the landscape. Casual basketball fans who had never tuned into a women's game before suddenly found themselves drawn to her dynamic style. She was more than just a great shooter. Her passing instincts and floor leadership evoked comparisons to the NBA's elite. In highlight reels, you'd see her drilling a deep three on one possession, then whipping a pinpoint assist the next. It was the kind of exciting basketball that transcended gender lines, hooking viewers who might previously have dismissed women's hoops. But that wasn't the whole story. The surge in ratings also stirred resentment among some players and fans who questioned whether Clark's rising fame overshadowed the collective achievements of the WNBA. People started asking, are we praising her too much? Instead of celebrating the fact that an amazing talent was pulling new viewers into the sport, critics framed it as the league favoring one athlete over others who might be just as deserving. The tension simmered, and it would soon boil over in unexpected ways. Angel Reese represents a different side of women's basketball, a tough, outspoken competitor who has never hesitated to speak her mind. She's confident and proud of her own role in drawing attention to the sport, and she isn't shy about letting the world know it. So when people began attributing the WNBA's recent buzz almost entirely to Caitlyn Clark, Reese took offense. In an interview snippet that went viral, she insisted viewers were tuning in to see her as well, and that nobody should forget the rest of the league's talent. This tension quickly escalated online, with fans dissecting every word Reese uttered. Some applauded her for standing up for herself and the broader community of players. Others accused her of being jealous, pointing to statistics that showed how Clark's presence drastically boosted television ratings. The friction wasn't just a war of words between two star athletes, though. It symbolized a deeper question. Is women's basketball ready to embrace a single face of the league if it means overshadowing everyone else? It gets even crazier. Critics of Reese pointed out that Caitlyn Clark's numbers spoke volumes. A single individual had managed to shift the entire viewership landscape. Yet, from Angel Reese's perspective, the women's game had always thrived on teamwork and unity, and she saw the media frenzy around Clark as an oversimplification. For years, players like Diana Taurasi, Candace Parker, and Brianna Stewart fought to keep the league afloat and expand its fan base, often with minimal support. Now, with Clark on the rise, Reese felt compelled to remind everyone that success doesn't happen in a vacuum. And then she dropped another bombshell, a hint that WNBA players might refuse to play if the league doesn't come through with a better collective bargaining agreement. Suddenly, Reese's comments weren't just about overshadowing or popularity contests. They were about money, respect, and the potential for a historic stand. Her stance added fuel to the fire, especially among fans who worry that a threatened strike could undo the league's fragile progress. It also intensified the narrative that women's basketball had become a battleground of competing interests, with Clark unwittingly placed at the center. Beyond the headlines and sound bites, though, Angel Reese's outspokenness underscores a fundamental need for recognition. She and many others want to feel valued not just as athletes, but as marketable stars who deserve the same kind of financial security and promotional backing that male counterparts receive. There's a sense that the WNBA finally has momentum, so why not push harder for real change? Why settle for incremental steps when the spotlight is actually shining on the game? Still, the conflict between Reese and Clark seemed more personal than purely professional. Internet commenters latched onto every perceived slight, amplifying a divide that might have been resolved with better communication. Instead, it spiraled into a saga, pitting a celebrated newcomer against an accomplished star who refuses to be overshadowed. The outcome of this dynamic will likely shape how the league markets itself moving forward. Will it emphasize a single superhero or highlight the entire cast of extraordinary talent? For all the headlines praising women's basketball's newfound popularity, there's a sobering reality behind the curtain. The WNBA is bleeding money. Reports indicate that last season alone, the league lost $50 million, a staggering figure even when compared to its more modest losses of the past. Over the years, the NBA has quietly subsidized its sister league, shelling out around $10 million annually to keep operations afloat. That number, however, pales in comparison to a $50 million shortfall. Suddenly, the WNBA's future isn't just about star power. It's about survival in an unforgiving economic landscape. Why are the losses so high when television ratings and public interest seem to be improving? The simplest explanation is that higher popularity also demands higher spending. To lure top talent and show they value their players, the league began providing private flights, an important quality of life improvement that also serves as a long-term marketing investment. After all, images of entire teams packed into cramped commercial flights do little to project a professional image. Yet, these private charters don't come cheap. And as the WNBA tries to upgrade its professionalism, the bills keep piling up. And here's where things take an unexpected turn. Meanwhile, the league's ownership structure complicates everything. The NBA still holds about 42% of the WNBA, having poured money into it for over 2 decades. Another 16% was sold to private investors for $75 million. which helped cover some immediate costs like those private flights. This leaves the WNBA itself with a precariously small slice of the ownership pie. Whenever discussions about revenue sharing or salaries arise, league executives find themselves stuck between players demanding fair compensation and investors who expect a return on their capital. This is where jealousy and frustration can turn into something far more damaging. The WNBA wants to keep pushing forward, gaining fans, securing broadcasting deals, and cultivating stars. But without sufficient revenue, they can't pay players what they truly deserve. So we arrive at a paradox. The league needs superstars like Caitlyn Clark to draw viewers and sponsors, yet shining the spotlight too intensely on one athlete risks alienating others who also crave recognition and higher salaries. The players' grievances over pay aren't new. Many WNBA athletes have had to spend off seasons playing overseas to make ends meet. This arrangement is both physically exhausting and risky, as evidenced by the high-profile incident involving Brittany Griner, who was detained abroad under dire circumstances. Despite these hardships, the WNBA's financial model has yet to provide a stable, sustainable income that can match the cost of living for professional athletes in large U.S. cities. All these challenges converge in a single question. Can the league find a way to transform the interest generated by stars like Clark into actual profit? If not, a lockout or a large-scale protest might be inevitable. And the moment such a strike occurs, all the momentum that's been building could vanish in an instant. This is the tightrope act the WNBA must manage, balancing short-term fixes with the long-term growth everyone desperately wants. When Angel Reese openly mentioned that players might sit out if the upcoming CBA negotiations don't yield fair compensation, the statement sent shockwaves through the sports world. Lockouts are not new in professional leagues. Fans have witnessed them in the NBA, NFL, NHL, and MLB. Each time, these labor disputes left a bitter aftertaste and often took years for the leagues to regain lost goodwill. For the WNBA, which is still working to carve out a broader fan base, even a short lockout could be devastating. Imagine what happens if, just when people are finally tuning in, the season grinds to a halt because players refuse to step on the court. The casual viewers, those who might only be there because of the buzz around Caitlyn Clark or a heated rivalry, might lose interest instantly. Advertisers, who have only recently begun to see the WNBA's potential, could pull their funding. The league risks not only halting its progress, but setting itself back by years, if not decades. Wait until you hear the next part. But from the players' perspective, what choice do they have? They've been underpaid and overlooked for so long that this brief moment of heightened visibility feels like the perfect time to demand real change. If there's ever been leverage, it's now. The threat is that if negotiations fail, the players will exercise the only power they hold, withholding their talent. They hope that the league, corporate sponsors, and NBA backers will realize that a lockout would be mutually destructive. The biggest question is how fans will react. Some might blame management for not providing better wages and conditions in a league that's seeing more attention than ever. Others will accuse the players of sabotaging the sport when it's at its most vulnerable. In reality, the blame game might matter less than the outcome. A strike, especially in a still-growing league, could sour relationships with fans, networks, and advertisers, resulting in lost contracts and a tarnished reputation. And what about Caitlyn Clark? She hasn't officially joined the WNBA yet, but she soon will. Would she also consider a sit-out if the terms are unattractive, or would her massive personal brand force the league to offer a unique deal, sparking controversy among other athletes? The possibilities are endless and fraught with tension. If the leading star gets special treatment, the rest of the player base might feel resentful. Conversely, if the league tries to treat everyone the same, it might miss an opportunity to capitalize on Clark's unique drawing power. The precarious nature of these negotiations highlights just how fragile progress can be. One minute, the league seems poised for a breakthrough. The next minute, everything dangles on the edge of a lockout that could drive fans away at a time when every new viewer matters. The players know what's at stake, and so does management. This standoff could either create the conditions for long-needed reforms or break the league apart just as it finds its footing. Wait until you hear the next part. Beyond money and fame, a quieter struggle ripples through women's basketball. The question of race and recognition. When Caitlyn Clark appeared on the cover of Time magazine as the Athlete of the Year, some within the WNBA community couldn't help but question why it wasn't the entire league being honored. The co-owner of the Washington Mystics suggested that a group photo featuring multiple top players would have been more appropriate. calling Clark's solo highlight a missed opportunity to showcase the full depth of women's basketball talent. Clark, for her part, has gone on record acknowledging that her rise might be perceived through a complicated lens. She mentioned that she's aware of her privilege as a white athlete in a league historically powered by black women. This openness from Clark reveals the pressure she feels, not just as a rising superstar, but as someone who might inadvertently become a lightning rod for debates about race. She's tried to show gratitude to the black athletes who paved the way, but the spotlight can be ruthless. In many ways, the controversy around her popularity is bigger than just one individual player. It reflects a broader conversation about how we celebrate and elevate women's sports. You'll never guess what happens next. For Angel Reese and other outspoken personalities, the conversation is about fairness and representation. They want the media and sponsors to recognize the immense diversity of talent across the entire league. Reese's frustration, in this sense, mirrors that of many black athletes who feel the system has never fully rewarded their contributions. Yet the tension goes both ways. Clark herself has publicly expressed discomfort with being singled out, repeatedly stating that she respects the trailblazers who came before her. If the WNBA hopes to move forward in unity, it must grapple honestly with these issues. Fostering conversations that celebrate every athlete's story, whether that athlete is Clark, Reese, or any of the countless others battling for visibility, will be key. Right now, though, the league stands at a delicate tipping point. Every headline about jealousy or racial resentment drives another wedge between potential fans, overshadowing the main event. The game itself, which deserves to stand tall on its own merits. Wait until you hear the next part. In the end, this isn't just about a single rivalry or an isolated set of financial numbers. It's about the future of an entire league that has fought tooth and nail for every step of progress. Caitlyn Clark's dazzling skills brought unprecedented attention, but they also spotlighted deep-seated issues around jealousy, equity, and funding. Angel Reese's bold stance reminded everyone that players refuse to be taken for granted anymore, especially when the league stands on the brink of true mainstream visibility. So, where do you stand on all of this? Is the league better off embracing a single superstar to attract attention, even if it risks alienating other talented athletes? Or should it focus on shared glory, potentially diluting the phenomenon that first captured the public's imagination? One thing is certain: eyes are locked on the WNBA like never before. And as fans, owners, and players alike wait for the next move, the clock keeps ticking toward a turning point that could redefine the entire future of women's sports. Keep watching, because the final outcome could be more dramatic than any buzzer beater, and its impact might last far beyond a single season. Thank you so much for watching till the very end. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notification so you never miss our next upload.